Hey TYT, this is Nomi Konst. I am here in Detroit for the first Women's March, the Women's Convention. And I'm here with longtime friends of TYT, the one, the only, Senator Nina Turner, also president of Our Revolution.
Yes.
And we have Linda Sarsour, who is one of the founders, co-founders of the Women's March, longtime friend from the Bernie Sanders campaign trail.
That's right.
And Winnie Wong, the co-founder of People for Bernie and Occupy Wall Street and Sandy.
I didn't found Occupy Wall Street, but that's
You're
fine.
co-founder.
We
You
were
were
there.
there.
We've
We've heard it all.
Every time you say that, somebody on the internet says, that's just not true. And you know what?
They say
it
that
just
about
isn't
everything.
true.
That's what we But we were there.
Yeah, we were there.
We were there. I remember that.
All right, ladies.
We were there. We were there.
You just brought down the house. This was incredible. You had people on their feet screaming, believing in what you're saying, the intersectionality of politics, intersectionality of all the different groups that you've brought. It's been very intentional. Every single panel I've watched has been very intentional and thoughtful, and I can see how the folks who came out here, all the ladies and men, that came out here getting moved, and they're learning, and they're getting woker, as Winnie said earlier today.
Okay.
A Winnieism.
A Winnieism, exactly. So I'll start with you, Linda. This energy, how do we continue this, and how do we take it out into the real world?
The energy has continued. We started on January 21st. Now we're in October. We're still fired up. These people are fired up. I'm fired up. And I think that perpetual outrage is going to keep us moving. We have no choice but to continue to organize, to continue to fight. We have an administration that is absolutely relentless, and they wake up every single morning anti-somebody and trying to hurt somebody or some community. And I'm very proud of the people that are saying, nope, not this time, not this generation, not on our watch. So I still have a lot of hope that this movement will continue far beyond just the January 21st march.
Senator, you've run for office a couple of times. You were in office. You know the fights. You know what it takes to be a woman running against the establishment. How?
I'm still running
You're
against
still
the establishment.
running against the establishment. We know this.
Every day.
What advice do you have for so many of these women who are curious, interested, who said they're going to run for office? Let's be real here. It's not easy. What is it going to take?
I mean, I want women need to know why they want to run. I mean, I was just talking to a young lady. I don't know if she left, but she's from Iowa. She said she drove 7.5 hours to come to this event. She said she did it for me, but I won't be that broke. You know, I was about to tear up. But she said, I want to be on the federal level, but I need to start on the local level. And I said to her, start where your heart leads you. See, it's just so funny how men can just wake up and roll out of bed and say, I'm running for president. But then women think, oh, I got to start on the local level. Now, the local level is important because I served on the local level.
That's
And that is the government that's closest to the people. It is the purpose, the part of government where you can't run from the people. You have that close connection. Being on the local level is just as important as running on the federal level. But I want women to know, run for the level that speaks to you. If it is about pure service day to day in the neighborhoods, in the community, then run for local. If it is about pushing public policy that is a little different from school policy to Medicaid for all and all that kind of stuff, then it's state or federal. But don't allow anybody to tell you that you are not qualified to do what you have been purposed to do and what is in your heart. So know why you're running, know why you want to serve, and then pick the level of government that you want to serve on and go for it.
That's right.
Winnie, you are an organizer. You talk about often the power of leveraging the power of people, using that power to further a movement. You've talked about it a lot. How do you harness this people power right now?
Well, I think that there are similarities between the Women's March and People for Bernie. I mean, in that Linda and I are both women who are and remain staunchly in support of the Bernie movement. It has nothing to do with Bernie. Bernie is a political avatar. He is someone that we can sort of travel through. His platform is unapologetically progressive. He stands for the values of all the women who have attended this convention this weekend and all the people who voted for him in the primary. So I think that, we're holding the politicians accountable now in a way that had never really previously been done before, because they never thought that there would be a moment like this where social movements like the Women's March and People for Bernie and Occupy Wall Street and the environmental justice movement could actually coalesce and say, you know what, we're watching you, and we're going to like elect you out of office and someone else into office if you don't do right by us. And so there's a lot of power in the grassroots. The grassroots Women's March local chapters are all here. It's incredible. And that's very powerful. It sends a strong message to certainly all the Democratic senators who spoke this evening understand who they work for now.
Yep.
The power is like they understand who they work for, and that's nice. That's nice to see. They understand that like they're here because they want the support of the women that follow Linda Sarsour and Carmen Perez and Tamika Mallory, 3 women of color who have been on the front lines of all of our social justice fights for decades now, you know, and they're finally at the table. No one gave them a seat, they took a seat at the table. No one gave me a seat, I took a seat at the table, you know, and we're still not, no one gave Nina, I mean, Nina was at the table, and then they were like, no, you're going to have to leave the table now. And then she said, you know what, I'm going to come back to the table anyway.
And so my own table.
That's right. And that's, and our revolution is a table that is, you know, that you sit at, and that I sit at, and that Linda sits at.
All get
That's right.
Very grateful for
you know,
that.
It's a very special moment.
It's a special moment. I think also, you know, some of the conversations for folks who've been at conferences focusing on women's issues. I'm going to be real. Usually, it's around just reproductive rights. Very important, but complicated, and it's complicated electorally. I think what I find fascinating about this convention is that there are so many different aspects of issues that relate to every woman in this country. And let's talk a little bit about intersectionality. What are some of these issues that you think don't get highlighted in the press that we need to talk about more because they affect the average woman's life in America?
Since the inception of the Women's March, it's always been about intersectionality. We did not allow there to be a march about reproductive rights and equal pay, right? Because even when you talk about equal pay, who's equal pay? That white women want to get paid the same as white men? What about the black women that don't get paid the same as the white women? What about the immigrant women who get paid less than the black women? So even in that race, the conversation about equal pay, we got to talk about racial justice, right? We talk about healthcare, you got to talk about poverty and economic justice. So we have brought in a new kind of wave of feminism that is intersectional, that basically looks at women as a whole person and also looks at women as part of a larger community. That is why our community, our at least our version of feminism also includes men. I will not leave my partner, my children, my son, my father, my grandfather, my uncles. I'm not leaving them out of the movement. They also need healthcare. They also need economic justice. They also need all the benefits that we're talking about in this room today and that we've been talking about. So we are coming to the table to say and to really put forward the words that have been used and said and written by women like Audre Lorde, where she said, we can't have a single issue struggle because we don't live single issue lives. And I think women of color are bringing that kind of perspective to the table and saying, let's go back to the black woman named Audre Lorde. Let's go back to the black woman named Kimberly Crenshaw, who coined the term intersectionality. And this is very important. For us, intersectionality ain't about black women and white women and Asian American Pacific Islanders organizing together. That's not what intersectionality is. That's diversity. That's different. Intersectionality is the intersections of the different oppressions and the different systems that continue to oppress the communities we come from. So you can't dismantle anti-black racism without dismantling homophobia and transphobia and Islamophobia and xenophobia and all the phobias and isms that we're talking about. And we hope that that's what people leave here with, that understanding. And it's also important for us to talk about a movement where those closest to the pain and closest to the problem, we believe are closest to the solution. That's why you'll watch stages across this convention, a majority of women of color, people with disabilities, people who are undocumented, people who are literally directly impacted. Their lives are on the line in this moment. Let's hear what they have to say and let's let them lead us and tell us where we need to go. And I believe if we sit and we listen and we're open-minded and open-hearted, we will win because winning is inevitable. But let's listen to the people who are going to help us win. We got really nothing to lose right now in the moment that we're in. I think it just doesn't get worse than this. And I think let's give black women a chance. Let's follow them. I'm pretty sure they're going to take us where we need to go. And that's what I do every day. I follow black women.
We don't have a lot of time.
Let the church say amen. You know, amen. Yeah.
Amen.
I follow Nina's, but
I definitely follow Nina. I follow both of you. What does it mean to win? I'm going to ask each and every one of you. What does it mean to win?
that it never ends, that we understand that winning is consistent, that it is generational. You know, as one of the ministers that I admire a lot from Cleveland said, the struggle is forever, so we are forever in the struggle. It's not a destination, but it is a journey. And winning means that we include everybody. And I loved how Linda said that our brand of feminism is not just about women, because it is about the wholeness of humanity, and that we cannot take away each other's humanity. So winning means it is a consistent struggle and understanding that this never ends.
Winnie?
What does winning look like, Winnie?
Well, I mean, I would say that it's like dismantling structural patriarchy and patriarchal capitalism all at once. And I say this all the time on TYT.
I know.
So it's fine. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, seizing the state, you know, and that means that women have to take control of the government. So at all levels of government, and also take actually understand that they have agency over their lives, and that means actually not internalizing structural patriarchy, because I think so much of what happens with women is that we internalize the structural patriarchy that actually encompasses everything that has been created by structural patriarchy, racism, right?
Yep.
Slavery, colonialism. All of these things are parts of structural patriarchy. And women of all races have to actually stop internalizing that. And when we achieve that moment, which I think this convention is actually a good jump-off, kick-off point for that, bringing so many women together across the political spectrum, because there is definitely a difference between the politics that Linda and I support versus like some of the Hillary people who are very much a part of the leadership of the Women's March, right? Like, we're coming together and we're having these very difficult conversations about like what that looks like, who we are going to be just challenged by, who needs to listen to us. That's actually our men, you know, and so we can't internalize the sexism, and we can't internalize the racism. And so I think that like a lot of very interesting, difficult conversations are being had in both the sessions and also in the hallway conversations and during lunch, you know, where people are like, did you hear what Linda said? Did you hear what Winnie and Nina said on the Medicare panel about this and that? And it sparks, you know, it'll spark a revolution.
Yep.
That's right.
You know, our opinions, our collective opinions will actually spark the very necessary sort of cultural revolution that needs to come for women. And we are moving away from an era of patriarchy and into an era of matriarchy, and sooner than later, I hope. So,
Linda?
I mean, I'll look more long-term vision. I mean, winning for me is the day that I don't have to apologize for who I am, the day that I don't have to defend my existence, my humanity, that I don't have to defend my faith, where my parents came from, why my parents came here, and the day that everybody in this country can wake up one morning and say, I have a dream, and guess what, I can fulfill it, I just got to walk through it, versus having to sit and think the 19,000 things that are going to be in your way in order for you to fulfill your dream. So I believe in that potential. When I see people like Senator Nina Turner, I believe in that. I believe in a country that is going to put a woman like her in the highest office of this land. I believe in that. I believe in that vision. That is why I do this work. Because if I didn't believe in that, I would just stick with the status quo and say this is just how it is. And I know this is not how it's supposed to be. So winning is all of us just being unapologetic about who we are, and people loving and embracing one another regardless of anything and any complexity we bring to the table.
can I just say one more thing? Yeah. This morning, Linda, in her first session, she said something that was so salient and wise, and it really it stayed with me throughout the day, and I'm still thinking about it a lot. She said, the patriarchy fears the solidarity and unity of women.
Absolutely.
That's what they fear the most. So when women are unified and have solidarity for one another, you've won.
That's it.
They're completely defeated. You know, so that's what's happening here this weekend. It's very, very important. They fear that more than anything else.
They want to divide and conquer us.
Absolutely, yeah. And it starts with the women.
It starts with the women.
By
And if you have
controlling our
men on board
bodies.
too, with the same, and they are teaching other men how to support women,
That's right.
that's when you win.
That's right.
So.
Yeah. It's been an honor to be in this space with you. We love you. We love you so much.
That's right. Still
Thank
Sanders.
you. Thank you for this.
Sanders.
Still Sanders.
Still burning.
right.
Yes, we are.
That's
Yes,
right.
we are.